Welcome back to the Arch Plays with Tarbuck Ransom. And
not vampire. You caught me in the middle of, when you're tired and you just need to like rub your eyes and your entire face. Well, you can't really stop that because otherwise then you're just going to be like left hanging, like a half-open banana.
Like orgasm denial.
I don't know, I like that half-open banana a little better, but I guess orgasm denial is more on topic.
Well, it relates to what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, and it's a good segue.
And it's more relatable to most people because people don't eat fruit anymore. Yeah, so...
Tell that to grocery stores.
On a semi-recent episode of Procrastinators Podcast, the topic of talking about sex came up. Not the topic of sex, the topic of talking about sex.
Semi-recent. I wrote this down a fucking long time ago.
Oh, well, I'm just getting back to watching it now because I did 2 conventions back to back.
Just helping people to recognize that we're not... This didn't happen currently. If you want to, for some reason, go back and listen to someone else's podcast.
There is no current with the Arch Plays.
Yeah, I guess not. Never mind.
This is always a show out of time.
Out of time and out of space. Okay, but yeah, they're talking about sex.
Yeah.
Just like all the intricacies about that, who do you talk about with? Who are you okay talking about it with?
Is it an okay thing to talk about at all? And the answer varies between different people.
How comfortable are you talking about it? Like, can you talk about it openly?
Yeah. I know there are some psychopaths out there who talk about sex with their parents regularly.
Yeah, that's a little it'd be okay to... the world that I would want is for sex to not be a taboo topic and, you could just talk, to people about it. But, the thing is, in practice, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Depends on the audience, mind you. Because
yeah, it does. I couldn't imagine talking to my family about sex, almost at all.
I can imagine talking to half of my family about sex.
No.
The side that's, nice.
I could talk to my sister, a little bit about, bare basics, protection stuff, but not any further than that. No.
Feels weird to you?
A bit, yeah, and I wanted to bring this up particularly because I've got a weird thing where...
You don't want it?
Well, no. Okay.
I had to take a shot at you for being over the ace thing because it's such an easy point of contact.
Yes, but okay. So,
or rather, a point of a lack of contact.
it doesn't help that I'm touch averse as well.
Yes, she's very touch averse.
Yeah. So don't hug me, please.
Yeah.
But so. Being ace also does go into it a bit, because on the one hand, I'm kind of removed from a lot of the feelings about, sex stuff.
It feels like talking about food.
Yeah, because I see it in a very technical way, and so, I kind of want to have those frank conversations, but oftentimes, when I'm bumming around on Whisper or something, the people who would talk to me about that either are viewing me as an oddity, as an asexual person, or are just trying to lead into flirting and hopefully getting nudes out of me. And it's because I want a world where we can all talk about sex frankly and it not be a behind closed doors and taboo subject, I keep putting myself out there and wanting to be the change that I want to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also well, why fucking bother? Because I've been through this how many times now, and I know how it always ends.
Yeah, if you put out If the net that you're casting is made of panties, you're going to catch a particular kind of person most of the time.
If the net that you're casting is panties, you're going to catch a particular type of fish.
Yeah. That little turn of phrase just now is a reference to the OA, because I there's a quote from that show that's really cool. I thought if I cast a beautiful net, I would only catch beautiful things.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. I like that you picked up that it was sad.
Yeah, it is quite sad. But, so, like, I find it's easier to talk about sex, especially frankly, through text and, like, in a way where I'm somehow disconnected to people. Like, I can imagine myself doing a little bit of talking about it in a video, but if I can see my audience while I'm doing it, then comes the awkwardness and I'd rather not. Like, even though I'd want a world where I could, it just still feels weird. Just because typically you don't do that here.
Oh, god damn it.
What?
There's an item here that's for somebody who's not this person.
Oh.
Oh, well.
So what's your talking about sex thing?
Okay. There's a lot that you've said here that I do agree with. Like, wanting to be the change you want to see in the world, being open and stuff. I have an easier time talking to people than very nearly anybody that I know. The only exception to that is like Mask, who is open the way that I am, which is part of how we got like acquainted with one another.
Mask was the change you wanted to see in the world.
I guess. If everybody, like, it would be easier to talk about generally if everybody that I knew was not paralyzingly socially awkward.
Yeah, a large part of it also goes into social awkwardness and trying to figure out what is okay and what isn't.
Yeah,
like, because unfortunately with sex, there's, like, particularly kinks that most people have but don't want to talk about. There's a big level of, well, how do I know my audience would be okay with this? Like BDSM. BDSM, for the most part, everyone has a fantasy related to it in some way.
In fact, in every study I've ever seen, the dominant fraction of people are people that are into it, which means that if you are not into it, you are the weird one.
Yeah, exactly. Most people aren't, like, entirely vanilla. That perception is kind of what gets born out of sterilized media, where kinksters are the weird people, and if you have particular things that you like looking at people's feet, then you're the odd one out.
I don't get the feet thing.
I get it insofar as they have an appreciation for something that I don't appreciate, but other than that, just like...
it's your relationship to the entire rest of the population who likes sex?
There's really something to the sex thing that everyone seems to go nuts over.
Nut.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say something else, but as I was speaking, it came to me. It's just like...
It came to you. Yes, it did come to you. I'm sure people come to you. You're a girl on the internet. I'm sure that happens.
I was told by a recent commenter that I am sexy. So that's cool.
Can confirm.
Yeah, that's cool. You can tell me that. Just don't tell me if you ever come to me. Please don't.
Like you don't want to know if somebody prints out a picture of you and then comes on it. Or buys a specific device for looking at your videos that they jizz on, or something like that.
So much for wanting to be the change that I want to see in the world.
Like, hey Vamp, I got a phone and I watch your videos, and I have this app that turns the vibrator on it, and
what? Okay, what?
The vibration function on the phone.
That went against my autocomplete, just...
That's something that people actually do, you know.
Is it?
Yep.
I mean, I guess I'm not surprised.
I haven't met any, but I've seen 4chan threads about it.
It's just I never would have thought to do this. Well, of course I wouldn't have thought to do it, but still, it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
I see now.
It's not really a you thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. But okay, so we were talking about you opening up and
Yeah, I have an easy time being open to most people about most things just because I'm a pretty open person. And this isn't really any different, barring, like, talking to family. I'm generally more open. I'm easier... I feel easier talking about it than most people I know seem to.
probably.
By and large. Like, Mask doesn't... It's not a subject that Mask talks about, really, because of... what was the name of the article about it?
About
Mask
what?
would want a name drop. They. I'm just gonna say they, because fuck you. Pronouns.
Yeah.
They wrote something about it a while back, and by a while back I mean like years ago now.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say I didn't see it.
About not being into flesh-based things.
Mm-hmm.
I am not made of meat. That's what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that sounds actually familiar.
Yeah.
I don't remember the sex part.
Yeah, because we do use made of meat to describe people that suck.
Yeah.
As in, there's nothing to them other than urges.
Yeah.
I was very critical, like Mask, of people that are... whose only substance seems to be the desire for and attempts to get sex.
Yeah, when being asexual, and especially, like, so every once in a while, like, when I need to kill some time and stay awake, but I don't have anything particularly interesting to do in that moment, like, if I'm just hanging out at work and I don't have anything important I need to be doing, then I will hop on Whisper and, open the door for people to ask me questions, like, hey, I'm asexual, and one of the predominant things I get is, well, like, do you just not date then? Because if you date, then but you don't have sex, then you're just basically best friends. And it's like,
That's
you...
not accurate.
Yeah, no, because there's so much more than sex.
And that also tells me that those people are reducing the entire concept of romance down to a fake thing to get sex.
Kind of. Or at least they're not understanding that all the other good parts of a relationship don't come from just physical intimacy. Like, as though dating is the gateway to get sex and that's it. Like, all the things, like, not recognizing that there are things that you can't do with a best friend, but you can do with a lover that isn't necessarily physical intimacy. Like, there's a certain amount of emotional intimacy and just being able to be romantic and talk about things without having to be like, oh, but no homo.
Yeah. A lot of the barriers of can't talk about this as a subject go away.
Exactly. And if your lover isn't your best friend, then and only just your lover, then you're doing something wrong. And maybe it's easy for me to say as an asexual person, but I think that's pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Where the fuck am I supposed to go?
Oh. For some reason...
Okay. Find and capture the monster spawning keeps. Alright, I think this is the only red place left, so I gotta go capture it.
Were you still saying something about...
Yeah, I was still saying something
about
sex.
I think I interrupted you.
What I was saying about sex, I don't remember anymore.
Made of meat.
I think that's pretty much finished.
Okay.
Sex is cool and all, but, like, don't make that the entire substance of your person.
No. especially because then, like, a lot of marriages, as you start having kids, if that's for you, or getting deeper into your career, you might not have enough time for that. And so if your whole relationship relied entirely on sex, then you're not going to have a relationship at all.
Mm-hmm. You don't, in that case, have a relationship outside of sex.
Yeah. Yeah, sex is just the be-all, end-all. And at that point, like, when you guys get past the sexual, like, sex all the time, every night phase, then you're just roommates.
And that's probably very closely related to why so many relationships tend to, like, break down at that point. Because they, like, you take a step back and you realize that you have no substance other than that.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck am I doing?
I mean, it's not to say that physical passion isn't important in a relationship, but it shouldn't be everything. Because for people unlike me, physical intimacy is greatly important. I need a sip of tea. Oh, crap, I'm out of tea.
You're out of tea.
I'm out of tea.
I think the game may have glitched out. I have captured everything everywhere.
Well, no, because you ran past those things.
Well, those aren't territories to capture. Those are just little outposts.
Oh, okay. Well, don't ask me.
Whatever, I'm going for the end.
Okay.
Talking about sex.
Yeah.
What bothers me a little... Okay, so I'm split a little bit on this, because I can totally understand the argument that the procrastinators make, where some people are overly open about it, and if you combine that with the people's tendency to be about sex and about nothing else, then that's incredibly annoying. What the fuck? But and they were talking about that in the context of talking about furries, where it what was their exact criticism? I don't totally recall.
It's been much longer since I've heard it, so I couldn't say.
That was an even further back episode too. All right, this is just done.
I can understand not wanting to hear about sex all the time, like, especially if that's not the only thing you care about. So that makes sense, and sometimes you just kind of don't feel like sharing certain details, especially about your sex life, so that's okay too.
And I totally get people wanting, like, discretion and to keep something that is close between them and another person, or multiple other people, as the case may be. Keep that and particular details between them.
Yeah, like, I know when other people, like, I was recently in a situation where someone, like, was talking about how they just had a intimate, like, they shared intimate moments with another person, and I was like, yay, good for them, triumph of romance and stuff. But I found myself thinking, I don't want to hear much more than, oh yeah, sex times happened. Just like, I don't need to think about these people in this context.
So this is yet another case in which you are not, like, living up to that ideal.
Yeah, and it annoys me a little bit, yeah.
Because you can't live up to it?
I guess, like if I try to muscle through it, it'll probably be okay, but I can't, but my initial reaction is just like, awkward.
Gotcha. All right, I can see that. It's not an I can kind of see that. It's like, I totally understand, because that is, like, I think that's where most people come from.
Yeah.
Even though that's the thing that we are just saying just now that we want to change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think how do I explain this? I wonder if other people aren't, like, they don't see reason to muscle through it, so they're fine with that being the be-all, end-all of it. Whereas, like, I'd want to be forced to get over this, like, thing in my head.
Well, there is definitely the factor that, and this is one of the things that Bestie Boy brought up, that there is another person involved, and so you would want, if you were going to talk about something, you're going to want that other person's permission before you talk about it, unless you're just talking about sex having in the abstract.
Absolutely. Like, even in the world that I would want, where you can speak openly about sex, I'd want, like, all parties to be involved. So, like, if you have an orgy, like, you don't talk about specifics until, like, everyone's like, yeah, totally, like, you know.
Or if there's, like, a pre-existing agreement, like, yeah, just talk about whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because I know I'm not always comfortable talking about, or, like, having other people on my behalf talk about things that I've been involved with in that way. And yes, I am an asexual who has had sex before. No, I don't need to try the dick first to find out if I'm actually asexual.
But have you had a slice of clam?
I had the opportunity to, but my asexual ass was like, I don't want to touch that. Literally, yes. I feel bad. So once upon a time, I did date this girl, and, like, she was into me, but I wasn't really into her physically. Like, I meant, like, boobs are okay, but, like, down there is, like, I don't want to touch that. And, like, from that, she thought that I was just, like, straight as as a ruler.
Straight and pretending?
No. Just like this experiment just isn't working. I'm just straight. But then it turns out, no, dicks are nasty too. Yeah, so that's a fun tangent. But yeah, always check with the other person first before you start talking about, oh yeah, me and Rosie. No one's named Rosie anymore.
No one's been named Rosie. Like, all the people who are named Rosie are, like, 40 now.
Yeah. You know what's an old name that's coming back? Evelyn. Like, that's a 1930s name. And, like, in 2013, it was the second most popular girl's name.
All right. I'm super happy about that, because in the 90s, when Brendan Fraser did that The Mummy movie, Evelyn Fry was the sexy librarian and got me hooked on the sexy librarian stereotype.
I never thought about it until, like, in The Incredibles 2, the villain's name was Evelyn, that I'd never heard that name in media, except in Chicago there was a news reporter named Evelyn Holmes. That was it. It's just interesting. Yeah. And then, no, even before that, in that George Clooney movie, his estranged wife was named Evelyn. And when I heard in that context, like, yeah, that's a really old person's name.
George Clooney's not an old person. No, he is now.
The movie he was in takes place in the 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, oh, it's an old person's name.
Funnily enough, so does The Mummy. It takes places in something like the 30s.
Okay, I've never seen The Mummy.
I think they have cars, but they're like the old-timey, like, buggy kind of cars.
Yeah, it could probably be 30s or 20s, yeah. In that case. So yeah, sex.
All right, yeah. All right, so I can see, like, wanting to keep a particular experience that is special between you and another person only in the space of you and that other person. I get that. That seems to me to be best for particularly special experiences And let's be frank here, unless you haven't had sex before, they're not all equally special.
No, they are not.
A lot of the times it can be like, if it's routine, you're doing something wrong. But
Yeah.
it can be a very pedestrian experience.
Yeah, like, you won't always come away, like, laying in bed, smoking a cigarette like, you were good, honey.
Where there's like a person-shaped dent in the mattress.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sometimes you'll be, there's situations where you could just get up halfway through and just, like, I'm calling a cab.
So bad times.
Yeah. Not every sexual encounter is going to, be as good as you imagine when you're laying in bed, 13 masturbating. Imagine what it'll be like if you're with a girl or a guy, or in between. And kind of on that, part of what I do want to be more acceptable, maybe not like necessarily the intimate details like, oh yeah, I tied her to the bedpost or something, but more like, yeah, me and blank, we fuck. Like, just being able to say that and not like someone like gasping in their head like, what? Like, like, it just being understood that when you care about someone in a particular way, sex is on the table, and that is very likely. Like, it doesn't have to be a secret that you're sexually active, or even if you're not sexually active. And, like, that there's nothing wrong with waiting for, like, to do sex if that's what you're into.
I like that you said to do sex.
Yeah. Do the sex. I often speak in a very unconventional and awkward way about sex just because it's funny. Yeah, we could do the sex.
That's charming. Another thing that's like that kind of stands out to me is think about how often fuck is just an expression.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem a little like it doesn't go quite if you can't talk about fucking?
Yeah, that's a weird one I've tried to reconcile. Like, on the one hand, it's just nice to just say, fuck! Like, because it's so visceral, but then on the other hand, when you think about it, it's like, it doesn't really match.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, here in the U.S., we're such prudes, and yet everyone says fuck motherfucking all the time.
Except on TV.
Yeah.
Because of dumb historical reasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, looking at you, Fox, Rent Live.
Yeah, you did make an episode about that, didn't you?
I'm never going to get over that. The one video where I swear, like, not all the time, but I do start the video off with just a slew of swear and otherwise naughty words according to TV guidelines.
Yeah, that's, like, and the weird part about it is you do kind of have a bit of a filthy mouth, and so I don't even, like, register that as out of the ordinary until you point it out in the episode.
Well, yeah, exactly, because you know me, like, outside of my videos, but anyone who just watched my videos probably sees me kind of like the Evelyn in that Mummy movie, like, I'm just the sexy librarian. So as I was saying, like, you know me outside my videos, but if you only know me from my videos, you probably think that I'm, like, I have a fairly clean mouth. Like, don't need to put the soap in my mouth, mother. I've already done it. Just, and I talked about it in the episode the video where I did it, but I don't swear in my videos, so then people don't, like, try to use that as a reason not to take me seriously.
Yes, because people definitely do that.
Yeah, and especially because I'm speaking with authority and sometimes academic manners.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that's dumb. Like,
well, Yeah.
I want to be able to say fuck in a scientific paper.
Exactly. There's been quite a few videos where I'm scripting it in my head and I hear a swear word come out and it's like, oh, that would work so well, but...
Well, there are times where that is the appropriate word to use.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can't because it's like something that's meant to be smart is itself stupid.
Yeah, I used to be one of those people who thought, oh, like, smart people don't swear, but that just... That's one of the stupidest thoughts you could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, yeah, a lot of dumb people swear, but so do a lot of smart people.
Yeah. That's like all of us here.
Basically, yeah.
Just
being cool and swearing.
Just being cool and smart.
Smart. Jeez. Okay, do you have anything else to say? I had some, but then I started blabbering about something else.
Yeah, we were talking about sex at some point here.
Yeah.
I have more to say about that, but it's hard to regain my composure once I get sidetracked.
Yeah,
because I'm playing a video game.
And I also have like 2 minutes before I should start getting ready to go.
Okay. So I'm not gonna say that people should hate talking about sex. That it's fine to want to keep that out of your life, just like it's fine to want to keep talking about anything out of your life in theory.
Yeah.
Except no, it isn't. You should challenge yourself all the time.
Yep.
I'm actually fully reversing on that thing that I just said just now. Expand your horizons. The fact that you're uncomfortable about it is a weakness. You are pathetic.
Like, you don't need to go hard on it.
You don't have to talk about it all
away.
the time, but to be worried about, or like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, stop talking about that around me. No, you're pathetic.
Yeah, like, and even, like, as you're working to get to that point, you don't need to go balls deep the first chance you get, but, like, go ahead and ease yourself into it, but don't let your current state be your forever state.
What I was going to say was, it's fine if you don't want to talk about it, but you should ideally be the minority. Other people should be okay with it.
Yeah.
It is a bad thing that you are not okay with it.
Yeah. And one thing I do appreciate, so I've been listening to Kat Black. She talks about the poly community often, and one thing I do appreciate with the community, like she's been part of and has described, is that they're just open about sex and what they're into, and it's like, yeah, more of this, please.
Now, it stands to reason that there's a poly community, given that, like, people who are open to, like, multiple pair bond relationships
there's multiple
are likely
kinds
to
of...
network with each other,
Yeah.
but, like, it somehow had escaped my, like, imagination that there would be a community.
Yeah, I didn't really think on it past, well, swingers have a community, so that makes sense, but I never really thought of it, well, poly people could have a community too, until I started listening to her.
Mm-hmm. Now, LGBT spaces in the old days had to have communities by default because they were a taboo thing, and no one else is going to even treat you like a person, so you need to have a community in order to function in the world. And do you think we're losing something by being more accepting? Like, there is no longer or the trend line is that there's not going to be a community anymore?
I'm not sure, because there's still communities and like spaces for certain LGBT plus identities, so that necessarily hasn't gone away. I think, like, if it were to come to pass where communities like the gay community, trans community, they don't have like central spots for people to get together and talk about things. I think that could be a bad time, because even if the world is accepting of you, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone around you will be able to talk to you about your specific issues or concerns. And it's just nice to have someone who's either already gone through it or is currently going through what you're going through, and be able to discuss with them, because even the best of allies might not be able to help you in that. Like trying to talk to a non-asexual person about like the struggles of like of being asexual and still kind of want to fit in, like it's hard for people in general to put themselves in the shoes of someone they've never experienced being. Like I can say this for myself, where I can only in the most basic sense imagine having not just a sex drive, but getting horny. But I couldn't really tell you much about that experience or help someone who does experience that, really, except for I'm there for you, friend. And like, that's not to say anyone who's not like you can't help, but
they have more work cut out for them as far as imagining what the experience of being you is like.
Exactly.
It's doable, but it's probably hard.
Certain states of being and experiences give you certain outlooks that not, like, people unlike you might not have.
Got him. Okay. Oh, I thought of another really good argument in favor of being open about sex and having everybody talk about sex all the time. It would be a vaccine against teen pregnancy.
Well, very much so, yeah, because it's been literally shown in places where there is actual sex education, not just, well, don't do it. Like, then teen pregnancy goes way down. And then, like, jumping off that, being able to talk openly about sex allows you to also talk about the unsavory things like rape and consent. Like,
unsavory things like consent.
Oh, well, okay.
You're more able to teach the vulnerable people what constitutes consent and what specifically doesn't.
Yeah, and
like contracts. Contracts do not constitute consent.
Exactly. You're able to talk about these things that are vitally important to a healthy sexual relationship that you don't get to learn from your parents or even school oftentimes, because there's just a matter of, well, we don't need to talk about that. Schools shouldn't be teaching sex, and parents, well, they don't want their kids to think about their kids having sex, so as long as they don't mention it, then their kids aren't having sex, right?
That is how people are.
Exactly. But unfortunately, predators rely on such lack of care to inform, to victimize people. And it sucks.
Mm-hmm. All
okay.
Right. You have to go.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can pause and come back to this, or do you have to finish the fight?
I can just, it's a switch. I can just hit sleep mode.
Ah, okay, cool. All right, thanks for sticking around on our ramblings about sex. The
screen has gone black because I hit sleep mode and didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I guess I have more to say about it, but I think you can extrapolate from here.
Yeah.
That people should be my feelings are generally talk about sex more, you guys.
Yeah, and if all of our 2 subscribers are interested in us coming back to this and having particular questions for us, leave them in the comments and let us know, because I'm for as awkward as I am talking about sex face to face,
that's just having a virtue and failing.
Yeah, I can still talk about these things in this manner for the most part. Look at how long I went on about this.
Yeah, and I clearly have no problem with hardly anything.
Yeah. You might say you're down for anything, no limits.
I have broad tastes.
Okay, well, I'm off to sleep for the man.
Yeah, all right. if you go and listen to Digi's talk in the Procrastinators episode that we kicked this off referencing, I agree with everything that he says.
I can't remember if I do, but probably. I tend to agree
well, he
with
wanted
Digi
people
on a
to
lot of things.
like be fully open with talking about it and be able to like swap tips with each other and stuff like that.
Ooh, yeah, that's another one that I didn't mention, but that'd be also good because
I'm tired of being the only man that's able to give a woman an orgasm that I have ever met.
yeah, exactly. Like,
All right, that's overstating things, but it's like
yeah, it's a common thing that like
I thought that was a myth.
yeah, no, it is a common thing where women like fake orgasms because they don't want to let their partner know, yeah, you suck. And most guys, they don't think about it, but just jackhammering her, that doesn't get her off.
So here I am calling you guys out. If you're a dude and you're with a lady and you get her off fewer than twice, work on that shit. You're not putting in the effort to understand what's happening. You're not communicating with your partner. You suck. Try harder.
I have no opinion on this, but whatever. I guess by virtue of being on this episode, I guess by proxy agree.
I mean, keep refractory periods in mind because there's a small fraction of people for whom if you touch them after they've had an orgasm, it hurts.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
with all of the experimenting that I've done, that's a very small fraction of people.
All the experimenting. Okay, bye.
Bye. Next time on tAP.